Yeah, it's working. Okay. Going
Okay.
slow, but it's
Well,
going. We are live on JWC. At least I think we are. We're having some technical difficulties tonight, folks. Um, this is JWC Livestream. JWC Livestream with Ricky and Tom. We were just working through some difficulties there, and we got it straightened out thanks to good old TC. Um, we do this show every Thursday. It's Story Autopsy with Ricky and Tom. Um, I'm Ricky. Hello, everyone. Tom, are you there?
yes. How?
Oh, yes, that's right. Live long and prosper. Um, Tom, it's good to have you back.
Thank you.
I know you had other business. That's fine, but we missed you. Um, I have been a very creative person lately. I have been writing chapters for a sci-fi book called Chiron 6 or Chiron Chronicles. Not sure. It's fun. Whatever it is, it's fun. I'm like 16,000 words into this thing, and I'm having a blast. It's an experimental structure for me. I'm kind of writing in a little bit of a different way, but I'm learning, and it's a blast, man. And I'm writing poetry again. I was telling Amber last week that my poetry muse has come back, and I have all these ideas for like stuff that I want to do with it. And I think ultimately what it boils down to is it's going to lead to because we're thinking about doing another live stream, Tom, on Mondays, a poetry
Cool.
live stream. And I don't know, it's just creativity's been great lately, and it's a good thing too, given how the world has been going. How have you been, Tom? How's everything
Oh,
creatively?
very, very good. I'm typing in. I'm at chapter 19 of my Blood on the Sand, my Florida novel.
Oh,
My main
great.
characters have just gotten back from the Bahamas, where they investigated a creature that they think is doing the killing. And 2 days after they get back, there's a storm, and the next morning they get a report that somebody disappeared 10 miles down the road from where they live. And so right now they're driving to the area to see if they could stick their noses into the police business and see what they can see anything that they other people might miss, like tentacle tracks or you know
Yeah,
strange furniture.
it's only laughable because it's fiction. Otherwise, it would be ghoulish. Such statements would be ghoulish. But I have to say, because I have some iota of what's shambling around down there by that shore. So, as a lover of monsters, I'm thrilled to say the least, especially with the way you do cryptids and your fiction. Your voice is fantastic for such. As is Amber. It's a shame I can't
Mm.
get her on here today, but
And I'm toying
everybody.
with a new John Penkram story.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, that's
the
right.
Phantom from Devil's Bog is the
Ooh,
working title. So
nice, nice. Pankram's always a good ride, man. As far as those stories are concerned.
I have another idea for a very early Penkram when he just left the police force and he's started out on his own, and his first case turns out to be a complete disaster. That might be interesting. About a
John Penkram, the early years.
yeah, about
Like a whole series of them, right?
yeah, a family
Mm.
that calls him because there's something fairies want their child, and he has to decide
Mm.
whether to give the child to them or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's their queen reborn.
Mm. Well, that sounds groovy. Let me know when it's done. Hopefully, we can get a gander of one of those drafts of that.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
if he gives the fairies the child to the fairies, that kind of blows his career out of the water. He goes, "That's not why we called you." So
Hmm.
we'll see.
Yeah, well, that's gonna be. I mean, and it's early, John Pankram, so he
Yeah,
doesn't have all of his wisdom yet. So who knows what could happen? It could be teaching. It could be a thing he has to learn, right?
yeah. Can make a wrong decision, and it
Hmm.
happens.
Yeah, absolutely. You could do a lot
Learns
of
what not to do.
jazz. You do a lot of jazz with stuff like that, like either him the early years or like do a next generation where he's building like some kind of coalition. And I
Mm,
don't know, maybe things are getting more serious and he has to like make an order, maybe he has to gather talent. Who knows, right?
maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
Pankram in the past 4 or 5 years has grown enormously with the witches and etc. A
Hmm.
lot of other,
The
you know.
world is
So
rich. Yeah, no question. Your world is rich for that. Well, that sounds great, man. And dare I ask about the bride?
she's coming along. A couple pages a day. Um, let's see.
That's great.
What's the name? So she's a unknown benefactor wants to help the hospital she's at to build a larger, an entire building to take care of newborn babies. That's her thing. She's near Berlin, and she doesn't know that this benefactor is being funded by Dr. Frankenstein, who wants to make sure her welfare is
Oh,
taken care of.
so
Yeah.
she's gonna eventually meet her creator in some
Uh,
way.
uh, we'll see. Right now he's behind the scenes, and when she meets the person that wants to give her this money, this rich guy, the big Dr. Frankenstein could be watching from a curtain behind a curtain or whatever, because I think she would like tear him to pieces if she ever spotted him.
Yeah,
She's
I
still
think so.
resentful a little bit. I mean,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They left on bad terms, so I can't imagine she's going to be doing jumping jacks when she sees him, right? I
yeah.
mean, the monster too probably wants to twist his head off, no doubt, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm asking because
We'll see.
you're. I'm trying to gauge their attitudes, like because you got a great thing you're doing there,
I
and
think
then
they
of course
mellow
there's.
over time, and eventually the monster will say, "Yeah, I don't want to kill you anymore."
Nah, I don't
So
want to kill you right now.
yeah,
Which is unusual. He'll be like, "What?" So anyway, that sounds great. Would you perchance have anything to read for us
I
today?
do.
So let's hear it, man. What is it? What do
I have
we?
a continuation of a chapter, the first chapter of my Shirella, first Shirella novel.
Nice. Sherelle is
Um,
always welcome.
right now, when we first last left her. It was Max O'Hara had fallen into the mud outside of her house, and his mind
Yeah.
was wiped. And he wakes up again, and he's in bed, and he's this older gentleman comes up to him and says, "You must be bound. Prepare to be bound." He's like, "Oh, okay." So
Mm.
that's where we pick up.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Cool. Great.
Now it says, "Now, young sir, I think you are up to answering a few questions." The man stated bluntly, "Come on." His words were startling, and O'Hara struggled to sit up in bed. A lightness in his head drained away, and his senses returned to their proper working order. The place felt musty, with a whiff of damp wood. A small log hissed in the fireplace. The ill lit, the ill lit, the ill light revealed little detail, although he could tell that late afternoon, or it was late afternoon or morning, by the shadow of the thick candle near the window. "What did you say?" O'Hara asked. Not liking the bloody trace in his mouth, he probed with his tongue, and found a cut on his cheek where his teeth had mashed against it. The man passed him a stone cup filled with water. The water, crisp and cold, its bite took the grittiness away and cleared most of the cobwebs from just behind his eyes. He breathed deep and looked at the man. If you are to become a member of our fine community, we will need to know your name. He had a fine, soothing voice. O'Hara, he blurted out, unable to come up with the rest. Could there be any more? No, O'Hara is his name. My name is O'Hara. Fine name, the man said, dipping his quill into the small hole at the top of the ledger. Perhaps an inch remained at the top of a thick tome as he opened it. An opening concealed an ink reservoir. He wrote on a line halfway down the page. Spell it for me, could you? O-H-A-R-A. O'Hara hesitated. You don't sound so sure of the spelling. Are you sure? Yeah. You'd better be sure. The name will be yours forever. Then O'Hara it is. Fine, that settles it. Now to the binding. Wait, I don't like the sound of the word binding. I'm afraid it must be done, and it must be done by me, or it won't get done at all. He lit a small cone with a lit taper and placed it on the table. The man withdrew 2 small brass bells from his sleeves. He shook them several times over O'Hara's head. Who are you? Asked O'Hara. I am Daljin, cleric from the temple of Iakorai. Temple who? What? Iakorai, goddess of the bound. You're not making much sense. The bound? Yes, we are all bound to the soil of Verema. The bells disappeared back into Daljin's sleeves, and a small cloth mat appeared in his hands. Daljin opened it and placed it upon O'Hara's chest. A small vial of oil popped open, and he poured its contents onto the mat. O'Hara opened his mouth to speak. Daljin held up a hand. Verema is where we all live, from Enderma to the wastelands, from the Dragon Sea to the Locks. Iokorai watches over all of us, so that we do not stray. Where is there to stray, Daljin, except from back to where O'Hara came from? Began the woman, even more beautiful now than as she stepped up to the bed. No one has ever strayed, even if they have not been bound, she said in a tone suggesting this argument had been going on for years. Daljin said nothing. He focused on finishing his binding ritual. With one last small invocation, he removed the mat. Ignore her, please, said Daljin. All right. O'Hara looked at the woman with a smile in his eyes. And who are you, if I might ask? O'Hara could not help staring. My name is Shirella, she said with a hint of a smile. Are you a cleric? Ha! She laughed at a short bark. Could you picture me in cleric's garb, Daljin? Not easily, said the little man. He didn't sound amused. What do you do? O'Hara smiled, loading up on charm. I maintain the peace in this little community, which is called Valtor, by the way. Strangers always ask us these questions. She's being too modest, said Daljin. She is champion of Valtor, a warrior of legend, almost without peer, slayer of... Here we go, uttered Shirella with a shake of her head. She turned and retrieved a chair and straddled it, sitting down. O'Hara, I would ask you to sit down if you were standing. These testimonials get wearisome after a while. Are you saying they aren't true? Asked O'Hara. Nope, but they are a little head-swelling if you take my meaning. I think I do. Good. You have killed all these creatures yourself. Is this so? Asked Daljin. I've been lucky in my life, is all. Lucky, chided Daljin, turning to glance into O'Hara's eyes. She has slain Harax and lived to tell the tale. No one has ever done such a thing. See those? Daljin turned and pointed to a saddlebag near the doorway to the bedroom he lay in, well-tooled and fashioned from a bluish-gray leather. 4 long teeth adorned the top flap, fastened to it by a silvery metal. Each tooth looked longer than a finger and as thick as O'Hara's wrist. I see a bag, pretty nice, but nothing special. You see, but you do not understand, said Daljin. The bag is sea dragon skin. The teeth are the upper right fangs of 4 dragons she has slain. I witnessed the sea dragon whose skin you look at. It menaced ships coming into Myrika Bay 3 years ago, and then it came into the bay itself and climbed onto the docks. Shirella was the only person who stood up to it. Quite a sight, as I recall. O'Hara turned to peer back at Shirella. Dragons? This dream is getting better all the time. Go on, tell me about dragons. No, wait, I'll tell you. O'Hara rubbed his eyes. This ought to be good, said Daljin, putting his feet up on the corner of the enormous bed O'Hara sat on. He took out a small pipe and lit it. Shirella smiled as she observed O'Hara struggle to understand all the details of this new world. Dragons, began O'Hara. I remember now. They're the size of castles. You have those, right? A few, said Shirella. I knew it. And now these dragons fly around and eat princesses. They breathe fire and must be killed as soon as you find them. Wherever they nest, there is a mass of treasure just ripe for the taking. As long as it's dead, well, how close am I? Shirella looked at Daljin and smiled. She turned to look at O'Hara. Those are the kind of dragons you have at home, I take it. No, we don't have any dragons at home. All those things are from children's stories. How can you know about dragons if there are none where you lived? I don't know. What are dragons like around here? They don't breathe fire. The most are pretty peaceful and have better things to do than hoard something they have no use for. What about princesses? Most of them don't have enough meat on them to be worth eating. I'd say your dragons are a nastier breed than the ones we have around here. O'Hara grew sad at this news. Are there no mean dragons around? Well, there are gem, gold, and ice dragons. They can be pretty mean if you enter their territory, said Shirella. But they don't go after anyone, unless they're hungry. I've had some encounters with and fire dragons. They weren't pleasant, said Daljin. So there are evil dragons. They aren't evil, began Shirella. They're just not as friendly as the other dragons out there. Some people have hunted dragons for their skins, such as the gold and gem dragons. Such behavior makes them a little leery of being near people. I understand, said O'Hara. His head cleared, now awake. He got the impression he wouldn't wake up somewhere else. This world was real, and he got stuck in it. He tried to take his mind off dragons and other creatures he could come up with. He looked at Shirella and said the first thing that entered his head. You're one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. Thank you, she said, blushing. Few people have said it lately. Why? She would have cut their head off, said a voice from the doorway. There stood a man of indefinite age. O'Hara would have said he pushed 60. He wore something more like a costume than a real outfit. Clad in a one-piece coat of the deepest blue, it reminded O'Hara of a bathrobe. A small pointed hat set askew on his white-haired head. He walked up to a small table at the head of the bed and set up a host of small vials and cruets. Shirella turned red-faced and opened her mouth to protest. When did you get here? A few moments ago. I should have put a lock on my door. Don't bother. I can only stay a short while. I hope you didn't bring any animals in. You know how Lim doesn't like it. The Gwylim will get to you with the real trouble some day. You're late. He's been nothing but trouble since I saved his life. The old man laughed and looked at O'Hara. What do we have here? He's only just arrived. In a day or two he'll be fit enough to leave. Don't deny it, Shirella, said the old man. I know how tough you are on the outside, but inside you are glad to have this man lying here. I've even heard stories of the men in your life. Shirella sighed and smiled. The old man pulled up a second chair and dropped into it. The name's Miahab. Try to remember it, eh? I'll remember. O'Hara looked at Shirella and smiled. So you won't cut my head off? No, she said with hesitation. Thank you for the compliment. I get so involved with my tasks, I sometimes forget the little things. I think we'll end it there. So, meeting these various people in the village.
Marvelous. Totally. It picks up from where the guy was leaving the automobile factory, and then he slipped through that space. He went planescaping, as the old term goes, and then he lands
heels in this other dimension. Landed in the mud.
Yeah, and that's gnarly. And then you have him at bed with Shirilla and Daljan. And I love the voice. I love what's going on, like dialogue-wise. Your dialogue's solid. And the fact that, like, when there's this suggestion that maybe she should be in cleric's clothing, Daljan has this attitude to him, like he can't, like he wouldn't be able to picture it. And knowing what I know about Sharilla, her attitude towards, religiosity is not exactly open-minded, but it's justifiable, I think, from her worldview.
Hmm.
And it's just fantastic because he goes from that in one instance, and then the next minute he's like, oh yeah, this sea monster came out on the dock and everyone was shook and shivering and she stood up to it. And he's like, it was really quite a sight. So the truth of the matter was is he may not even like her, but he was like impressed by how she like did what she did.
Oh,
and and her power game is that she's got dragon apparel, like she's
yeah.
got accessories that are made out of dead monsters,
In
and
in
she's like,
in,
where
in
did you get
Varema,
that?
yeah, in
Yeah.
Varema, if you personally slay a dragon, the right front, I guess you could fang, the biggest fang, is given to you. And if anybody when she rides around with that saddlebag, and people see 4 dragon teeth, they are, don't mess with this. Don't mess with this one. I mean, if you can kill a dragon,
Well,
very
that's what
few
it
things,
is.
can stand up.
Yeah.
So
No doubt about it. And that's the point is on a power scale, dragon slayers are pretty good. That's a pretty good thing to have in your
yeah.
repertoire.
So
Well
we have.
well written too, man.
Thank you. We have
Yeah.
Daljin is like the local cleric for the temple. It's there,
Mm-hmm.
and Miyahab is a sorcerer who
Mm.
just is Shirella's buddy, good friend, and so and
Yeah.
so Miyahab and O'Hara have lots of adventures together. They discover they have a love of food, so they're always coming up with new recipes, and and so
It's a great character tree to relate to because you have those two guys, and then you have Lim, and all
yeah,
that
they only
stuff together. And now we have O'Hara, who's like some kind of dude, right? Like he's a human. He's a
picture
human.
Jeff Bridges dropping in on into a medieval village.
Yeah, the dude
Right?
abides. The dude abides in Middle Earth or whatever. No, Valrema. That's right. No, well, I actually think that's a great way to juggle it. I mean, and O'Hara, how many stories does O'Hara show up in?
O'Hara's in the 7 novels. And that's kind of at the moment.
Cool.
What I did was I did O'Hara, a trope in like a lot of fantasy fictions have somebody or stories have somebody explain what the world is like. And the way I thought of it is instead of having just them riding along and talking about, well, these red berries are, da, da, I just thought, what if I had a complete stranger drop in who knows nothing, and Shirella and Miyahab and all these friends explain how the world works until he can get a handle on it in his head and etc. And right that way, the reader also learns about the world
Sure.
as O'Hara's learning, and I didn't think that. I thought that was a little better than just what do you call it, exposition
No,
all
I
the
like
time.
the expo and the concept of O'Hara is kind of like the audience's
Mm.
perspective. So it's like he's a nice tutorial, which is a very respectable structure to have. I mean, he's like the droids in Star Wars. It's like the droids are like, in my opinion, they're meant to couch the audiences, because they're robots, so they're not the same kind of human or fleshly thing that's walking around. So it
Mm.
kind of like, I don't know. It's always been my opinion on the matter, and I think it's great to have that put in there, and it also it plays up on the concept of people slipping through portals,
Mm.
and being lost to one reality and being injected into another, which is quite a horrifying concept. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff where portals open, portals close, like The Mist,
Oh yeah.
or Stranger Things, or there's this thing online called the Back Rooms, where it's like In the back rooms reality, it's because it's like everything's a simulation. So you can walk into a bug and like fall through the floor and you're in this other universe. And if you don't like, there's things in there. That's all I can say. Like there's
Mm.
inhuman things in there. So this guy O'Hara ended up landing in a good place where people
Oh yeah.
were ready to help him. But the truth of the matter is that portals that open up, they could bring you anywhere.
Yeah.
Speaking fictitiously, but there's the whole concept of Dave Politis's missing 411, and all the strange abduction phenomena. Um, Great read, Tom. Thank you for that. But I want to move on to the next segment now concerning because like when you do this portal story, taking him from Earth to Varema, it's like you do it so naturally, and I would imagine it's because in I call it portology, like the creative use of portals in fiction is like it's really, it can make the whole difference that you need.
Sure.
Because the way science fiction, in my opinion, benefits from a thought experiment, almost any fiction and fantasy, I think, has to have like a similar principle. Like it doesn't have to have a scientific thought experiment, but it needs to have a thought experiment, like an overarching question. And one of the things is like, is this the only universe,
Mm.
or are there multiple universes? And in fiction, of course, you can make that happen, just as you did in that story. He went from one to another. But like, I don't know. I'm supposing that you've always had an interest in portals and mysterious stories, and therefore the Oz effect, because I know you've studied a lot of that stuff.
Since I was small, you know.
Me too. Me too. Since like Ghostbusters and slightly before, I've always been interested in the paranormal,
Mm.
and I've always had a very strange view of life ever since I can remember. And that brings us to our subject tonight, which is paranormal influences in our writing. What are they, and how have they affected us? Um, and I can say that the paranormal has had a massive effect on my writing. Always has. Um, it's not so much in Babbletron. Babbletron is almost like conspicuously free of like oogie boogie, like ghosts
Mm.
and goblins and spirits and cryptids. Like there's sort of cryptids in there, but they're genetic atrocities. They're not.
Right.
It's not exactly the same thing. But it's like in Azaoth, there's creepy things, and in Nidhogg is like floor to ceiling because it's paranormal fiction. So like, as far as all that's concerned, I mean, I've always thought that like, everything has spirits. I see spirits in everything. And then once I found out about like, Ghostbusters, it meshed with my spiritual tradition that I was raised in. So it was always something that I saw. And the very first creepy story that I ever remember writing was called The Creeping Willow. I was in my friend's basement, kind of like chilling, waiting for them to come back. And because I just, there was something about, because we had a lot of willow trees in our neighborhood, and they sound beautiful when the wind blows through them. But there's just something about them. Like they always, like when I was a boy, I found them so impressive. And I guess there was something there where I don't know, it was almost like I felt like it was regarding me.
Mm.
Like the way I looked at the tree looked at me. Like I think I had such a respect for it. And then, that got into me when it came to my fiction. Like Book of Masroth is loaded with all kinds of like ghosts and phantoms, and um and Nidhogg, obviously the same thing. And I can't imagine not writing spiritually charged things. You know what I'm saying? Now,
Mm-hmm.
how about you? Like, when did you feel the paranormal first started to influence your writing
Wow. Well,
and yourself?
I think I've always had a pretty vivid imagination. I would see something and I extrapolated what if out of it. And when I was 10 years
Oh,
old, a week before school, I think I read this story. A fireball went overhead, and it was spitting
oh,
out
one of those.
little tiny bits of pieces of debris that were bright and falling. And my thought was, what if this was not a fireball? What if it was a like a mothership, and the little pieces that was spitting off were little craft that had a creature in it, and they were dropping them, and it was kind of like that's how you could do an invasion. I said, wow.
Yeah,
I said
see?
so, and I tucked that away, and a year ago I wrote it up as a story called "Is It
What?
Still Out There?"
Cool.
So,
I don't think I've ever heard that one.
ah, that's the
Yeah,
title
you
of my
might have
second
to.
story collection. Is it still out there? And
Oh, yeah. I just got those books. I haven't had a chance to crack them yet. I got to
so
get down with that.
yeah, so I've always had a, and then I saw when I was about 10, Channel 5 News had a 1 hour special one Saturday on what are UFOs, and I was like riveted. I said, "Holy crap!" And I looked, I said,
Mm,
this is real, and I went right out. I started making my collection of paranormal books. Um,
yeah.
the first things I ever read was Flying Saucers, Serious Business by a gentleman named Frank Edwards. Still one of the best books out there because it was a deadly serious investigation of the phenomenon.
I gotta get a book list from you. I'm just afraid to do that because I feel like I have no room left anyway. But like
I
there
have a
I gotta
copy of it,
just
I think, and I can include that in my possibly in my box to you. So
wow. Well, gee, I gotta figure out how to. Yeah. Anyway, we'll discuss that. I
yeah,
gotta. Yeah. Go
so
ahead, man.
another book later on. I was in the library and I was perusing, and I must have come across the paranormal section. I saw a book, um, The Abominable Snowman: Legend Come to Life, and I pulled it out. It was about 700 pages. It's by a gentleman named Ivan T. Sanderson, who was like my godfather of paranormal. And I took the book out, and I said, "Wow!" I said, looks amazing, And I read it in like 4 days, 700 pages. I said, "This is absolutely amazing." So I started looking for more books. I went to the library. I said, "Could I get a copy of this book for myself?" She said, "Yeah, you can. $7, you know, give me $7, I'll get you a copy." So I gave her. I had the next day $7, and I have a copy of it. It's a very early, like a 1963 edition of this book. It's worth like $400, and so I was like, "Oh, this is so," it was like one of my prized
Amazing.
possessions. And
Amazing. I'm gonna have to get it. You know what I'll
anyway,
do is I'll get an author list from you and I'll
yeah,
do some YouTubing because I wish I could buy more stuff. I have no room. So yeah, so clearly you've been influenced by the paranormal, and it's obvious with you that it's like your horror shorts, your Florida novel, John Penkram. I mean, it's obvious that you have like a paranormal and an occult, like a parapsychological
right.
imprint on your work, and me too. Um,
If I could
and
bring up a point, real
please,
quick,
yeah,
the
yep.
turning point in my you know, from everything being serious and explainable, all of a sudden my world took a gigantic, hairpin left turn when I ran into where I found um, a book called Disneyland of the Gods by John Keel.
What a title.
And John Keel basically created this whole idea of the multidimensional universe and creatures coming and going and the trickster. Basically, all these things are the work of the trickster, and
Man, I gotta read that, man. John, you've been
oh,
talking about John Keel for years. I'm
John Keel
slacking.
also wrote the Mothman prophecies, which
Oh
really
well,
blew my mind too. I mean, it's like, whoa,
yeah. I think I'll start with him. I think I
yeah.
gotta figure that out because those are two bombshells. Um,
John Keel basically opened up an entire world that it's not, the Earth is not just black and white. There's a gigantic array of everything imaginable. And he introduced the idea of that the picture of the universe is like a gigantic shopping mall, and the Earth is one little store. And it opens
yeah,
up to a million other doors and a million other places that things can come and go to your store or vice versa. Mostly they visit us, and that's my kind of my worldview is that the world is, this there's a universe of multiple universes that it's the only thing that basically explains everything is that there is a multiverse out there and things can have access and freely access uh, our world. And once in a while, one of us accidentally falls in and doesn't come back,
no,
and we don't have the keys.
well, that's the thing. We're not in control of it. I mean, not all of us anyway. I mean, it's profitable for you to embrace that type of worldview because, as I've said before, when you write fiction, especially the kind that we do, you're creating paradigms. So it's helpful to be able to overcome your own paradigm because there's a singularity in all data. Like there's a certain amount that we just don't know. And in that thing we don't know, there could be living huge atomic plot holes, as it were, that would grossly fix our paradigm. And we just don't see it because we haven't stepped into that. But there's so many people that have seen so many strange things. And there's so much that's unknown in the unknown
Oh,
that
sure.
you can't help. So don't be afraid to explore this literature, folks out there. That's the whole point behind it is especially if you're writing, look into it and see what these other people think that the universe is. And it could stir your imagination and inspire you, give you some ideas. I mean, the first thing people say is that they're quick to reduce it and like, well, I'm science. And it's like, yeah, but science maybe just hasn't seen it yet. Like nobody's doubting science.
Uh-huh.
It's a big universe. It's a deep ocean. It's a big sky. There's
A
lots.
lot of stuff we don't know.
Yeah, so it's
I mean,
like best.
125 years ago, the Board of Science in France or whatever, the organized science, they determined that there were no such thing as meteors landing on Earth because there aren't stones hanging out in space, so there are no such thing as meteorites. And then, like a couple months later, 2 miles from where these guys hung out, a 40, 400-pound rock hit the hit the Earth, and they were like, maybe we should rethink this. So
Yeah,
my view is that there's the known, the unknown, and the unknowable.
yeah, fair
So
enough. That's a pretty decent way of putting it too. Bear that in mind, folks. Tom, three favorite horror flicks.
you ready?
I
All right.
am.
We'll start with the greatest one of all time, Night of the Living Dead. I mean that
Mm-hmm.
uh, you
Totally,
you
totally
cannot watch it.
respectable.
It's still packs a shock. You know,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you've never seen it, you should lock all the doors, turn all the lights, and watch it straight through. You know,
Original black and white, right?
yeah, boy,
I
it's
I hope
amazing.
so. I hope so. Yeah.
A second one is from 1957 called The Curse of the Demon. It was about an American psychologist in England battling a man who claims to be a black magician who has
Boy.
control over a demon, and he can send this demon to kill people, anyone he wants to. And he's cursed the
Oof.
psychologist to die in 48 hours. So no more spoilers. It is amazing. The,
Fantastic. That
Great
sounds
stuff.
great.
And my granddaddy of all my is the picture. The guy in the picture here is good old from
No,
1922,
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu, The original
That's right.
Dracula movie. Still the best
Uh,
vampire movie ever made. I mean,
it is a masterpiece, and I know, I mean, he's a fearsome thing. If you were to see him walking around downstairs in your kitchen at night, it would be, you wouldn't be pleased.
yeah.
No, those are very respectable choices. Horror is a many splendored thing. There's so many different facets to it, but like when I consider horror, it's like, is it sci-fi horror? Is it Lovecraftian horror? But I
Mm,
go by like good old fashioned American horror. And what I would say is Evil Dead, like either one or two. Like
mm,
I love that movie. Like either one of them. Like I like both, but it's probably two that I like better. But it's so hard to say.
mm-hmm.
Um, the original Poltergeist is pretty crazy, at least in my opinion. And as far as like slasher movies,
Mm.
I like Halloween,
The
like
original
the
is
original
incredible.
Halloween.
Yeah,
Now, what's
I had that on my short list, but then that would be a good fourth for me. So go ahead.
yeah. I mean, I've never been into Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, I like the one, the Freddy Krueger with the Dream Warriors or whatever.
Mm,
That one was pretty cool, but he was never really like my favorite thing. But Halloween and like, because there's just something about how they did that flick, you know. Um, and it's also, it's like, it's the concepts behind it, like in Evil Dead, he goes to that cabin and it's the whole Necronomicon routine, but the uncle left it on tape and then they played. It's like, what a great scam. Like they were just doomed. Like they
mm,
should never have gone there. And it's like, it's just such a fantastic concept. And again, portology, opening a door and letting something in.
right.
And the near limitless potential of wrong and evil and terror that can pour forth. It's just an amazing situation, and it's the same thing with Poltergeist. The idea that it's built where it's built, and all hell starts pouring through to object. And there's just something about that, and Halloween is like, that's the thing about horror. There's some multidimensional context behind horror because it's there's something around Michael Myers where he won't die. Like there's some kind of supernatural field, or because I don't understand after a while how he's still in one piece. So it's like, that's the whole point, is there's something that's just fated to almost be indestructible, and that's not nature. That's whatever that is coming from. It's super nature. It's coming from somewhere else. So bear that in mind, folks. And we'd love to hear from you about your favorite horror flicks. Drop them in the chat. um well, all good things come to an end, folks, and we started a little late, but we're going to get our act together for next week. Come at you strong. This was a good show, though. Tom, your read was great.
Thank you.
Everybody, please go check out joeswritersclub.com and go to our forums. Sign up for joeswriters.club and become a member of the Joe's Writers Club community. We have some really great stuff planned for the rest of this year, and we'd really like you to join us. Head over to our YouTube channel and like and subscribe, please. And anybody that wants to come on by, we're going to be having a new workshop and live stream situation on Mondays. Please come check us out. A lot of good stuff in store. Tom, what do you have to plug tonight as far as books?
I have two books on Kindle. Dwellers in the Shadows short story collection, and the second collection called Is It Still Out There? I just redid the cover, and
Oh,
it's
cool.
beautiful. Yeah.
Nice. Great. And that's on Amazon. I am Ricky. My author name is Richard Andrew Olkus. I have a book for sale. I got a couple books for sale, but the one I'm selling today is Babbletron, After the Fire. That's Babbletron. It's a dystopian cyberpunk book. I read a chapter of it a couple weeks back. If you guys want to go check that out, feel free and drop some comments. Let me know what you think. I had a lot of fun writing it. So check it out at Amazon.com. And check out JWC. We have SEO workshop, and we have other workshops coming up. Go to joeswriters.club and sign up for this stuff. And we have a meeting on Tuesdays, Eastern time, 7 to 9 p.m., where we work on projects and we do reads, and it's a blast, man. Our classic meeting on Tuesdays. And I think that's just about it. Thanks a lot for listening, and you guys take care. We'll see you soon. Tom, thanks a lot, man.
Yep. All right. I'll see you soon.
Farewell.